up guys, it's Mega giving you another deck for Link Evolution. This guys is my Fortune Lady deck. If this deck wouldn't be possible without Stardust YGO guys, because I had a bit of problem making this deck and I went through 3 or 4 different builds, like what could I do better and everything, and I saw his deck and it kind of fixed a lot of the issues I was having, and I did take out 1 or 2 cards, so cards that I thought I could make, but without him guys this deck wouldn't be possible. So his channel is in the description down below. Please give him a look, a like, all that good stuff, because he has actually made quite a few videos on Fortune Ladies. This deck is all about special drawing constantly through like Magician Souls, all of our like Spellbook of Knowledges, the lot, in order for you to get the cards you need in order to go into stuff like Ultimaya, and then which that allows you to go into stuff like Crystal Wing, our field spell, shuts down spells, and you go from there. That doesn't mean this deck fails if you don't go into Ultimaya, because as you see in all of my replays, I didn't actually summon him because I just got denied all the time. So yeah, if you're struggling to make this deck guys, check out the card hub. Now if it tells you if a card is in this game or not, it will tell you where to find it, such as campaign, challenge mode, or card packs. That does include the new cards added via the update, everything you need to know. And with that guys, let's get into the video. But, just so you know guys, we are not running any hand traps or any way to disrupt hand traps whatsoever, so you might think, whoa, how the hell do you play this deck? Actually, you just have to play through hand traps and hope for the god best, because the reason why you just can't add them, there just isn't space in the deck. It's like Fortune Ladies just need that one or extra couple of cards, like a link card or something, just to help them excel. Really, they really do need something. But you can add in hand traps or Call by the Grave, and yeah, it will make the deck a little bit more inconsistent because it's over 40 cards, but by all means you can do whatever you want. So starting us off guys, there's 3 copies of Apprentice Illusion Magician, level 6 monster, really easy to go into Photon Strike Bouncer, and also able to go into Fortune Lady Envy, and also because she's level 5 or higher, she makes life easy to go into Ultimaya. You can special summon her from the hand by simply discarding any card, and special summon her. And also guys, that effect is not a once per turn, so you can just keep going for the life of you. You get her into the graveyard easily by using Magician Souls if you want to, so you can play Monster Reborn to resurrect her, and that's particularly the only reason why I usually run her, just either help with synchro plays or just have a monster on board for Secret Village of the Spellcasters. And that's what the reason why I run 3 copies of Chaos Sorcerer. It's like an alternative version of Apprentice Illusion Magician, because Chaos Sorcerer, you can special summon it by banishing 1 light or dark monster from your graveyard, and that again is not once per turn, so if you have all the monsters in the graveyard, go for it, so summon that Chaos Sorcerer. Again, to level 6, so using it along with Apprentice Magician, you can go into Photon Strike Bouncer, and also it sets up a lot of plays. The difference is, this bad boy, you can banish 1 face-up monster your opponent controls. However, this card cannot attack the turn you activate that effect. But if you're going to go into it or use it to go into Ultimaya or like Fortune Lady Every, you don't particularly care about that banishing effect, so you can just banish a card, maybe trigger Fortune Vision's effect, and then you just go off from there. On to some Fortune Lady cards themselves guys. We're all running 1 copy of Fortune Lady Dark. I added this in because I thought it just gave the deck a little bit more play. So with Fortune Lady Dark, or all the Fortune Ladies, so I have an effect where the attack is based on their level. So for instance, Fortune Lady Dark will gain 400 attack points for each of her levels. That means on starting she will have 2000 attack points, and all of them have an effect where during the standby phase they gain an extra level. Makes it a little bit easier to go into synchro plays and all that lot. And of course, since the level goes up, their attack points go up. And all of them have another effects based on whatever you do. So, her effect is, when a Fortune Lady monster destroys an opponent's monster by battle, doesn't matter if it's this card or any other Fortune Lady, you can special summon a Fortune Lady from your graveyard, which could come in handy because you can go inside better plays with it. But the reason why I decided to add this is because it's another dark monster, so it makes life easier for Chaos Sorcerer and Allure of Darkness, and also because if it does get banished via Allure of Darkness, you can use stuff like Fortune's Fusion, or Fortune's Future, sorry, to send it back to the graveyard to draw 2 cards, and of course you can special summon it with Fortune Lady Calling. It just makes a lot of extra plays, I just thought, so that's the way I started adding Fortune Lady Dark. Then we've got 3 copies of Fortune Lady Light, one of the key cards, because when this card leaves the field by card effect, you can special summon a Fortune Lady from your deck. And again, that effect is not a once per turn, please bear that in mind. And we have a few cards that can trigger this effect based on ourselves. Fortune Lady Past can trigger Light's effect, and Spellbook of Knowledge can trigger light effect while drawing 2 cards. The Royal Duelist, really great card, and you're just going to use her to basically trigger effect to go into like water, so you can draw more cards, or go into like dark, so you can go into every easier. And also, because she's a lighter monster, you can banish her to summon out the Chaos Sorcerer. And then one of the best cards in this deck, I reckon, in my opinion, is Fortune Lady Past. New card got added, and she's so good. So again, she gains 200 attack for each of her level. We don't particularly care about that. So you can target a Fortune Lady monster you control, including herself. Banish any number of spellcaster monsters from your hand, from your hand, field, or graveyard. So this is why it works better with light. And then you can increase her level by you can increase the Fortune Lady's monster you targeted by 1, or decrease its level by 1. So you can make it easier to go into synchro plays. The downside is this is a hard once per turn. So if you do have another monster, copy of Fortune Lady Pass, and you can special summon it, can't use its effect again, sadly. But the best reason why you do this is because if you have Past and Light on the field at the same time, you can banish Light to increase its level by 1, and then you get special summon a monster because Light has left the field due to a card effect being passed. So that means you can special summon dark or water from your deck, and you just go off from there, because dark you can go into every, or fortunately Lady Water, we're going to get to in a minute, can just let you draw more cards. So that's the reason why we do it, and yeah, it's just a really great way. She's the tuner of the deck, so that's why it's so key to go into it, and it's just so good. And then 3 copies of Fortune Lady Water, the best card in this, second best card in this deck, I reckon, because during if this card is special summoned while you control a Fortune Lady monster, you draw 2 cards. And guess what, guys? That's not once per turn. You can draw for days with this card. If you can find a way to special summon her constantly, you're just drawing for cards like it's going out of fashion. So if you have the Fortune Lady Light and Pass combo, like I say, you banish the Light summon out water, you will ultimately draw 2 cards. Then you're able to go into Cold Dragon, which is your level 6 tuner. And then if you have a way to go into a Apprentice Illusion Magician or Chaos Sorcerer, you can go into Ultimaya. Then you get to draw another card off Cold Dragon's effect. So you've just drew 3 cards off, basically just banishing a monster really and special summoning another one. It's really kind of easy to go into. And say for instance you play Water's effect and then you play to draw 2 cards. You've still got another water. You've still got like Light or Pass on the field because obviously you played the effect. And you play Monster Reborn to resurrect another copy of Water. It will still trigger because you still have another copy of Fortune. You still have another Fortune Lady other than Water on the field. So that's why it still works even if you have 2 copies of Water and like another Fortune Lady. It still triggers. And you can just keep drawing for days. It's just there to just help you more draw. And then finally, 3 copies of Magician's Souls. So Souls is like another way to just draw more cards. It's kind of, you should put Exodia in this deck really. So you can send 2 spells. So she has a couple of effects that can trigger. She has 2 hand effects where you can either special summon it from your hand, or you can send this card to the grave and special summon a Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl from your graveyard. Obviously, you can't do the Dark Magician or Dark Magician Girl play. You can only special summon this card from your hand. And you do that by sending a level 6 or higher spellcaster from your deck to the grave. So you're going to send either Apprentice Illusion Magician or Chaos Sorcerer. Doesn't matter which one you sent to the graveyard. Mainly, I'd kind of send this Chaos Sorcerer, especially if I've got the cards to draw, because I want to see that Apprentice Illusion Magician because it's easier to special summon than Chaos Sorcerer in my personal opinion. So, with Magician's Soul's effect on the field is you can send up to 2 spell traps from your hand or field, and then draw that many cards. So if you send 1, you draw 1. If you send 2, you draw 2. And there's also a dark attribute which makes life easier for a Allure of Darkness. Say if you've already got 1 in your hand and 1's on the field, obviously you can't play your effect twice. It is a hard once per turn, so that's why you can just banish the other one, draw 2 cards. It makes life easier, especially if you've got like a dead copy of like the trap card we'll get into, or if you've already used the effect of Fortune Vision, you can just send it to the graveyard, it served its purpose, and you draw an extra card out of it. So with all this, it just helps you just keep drawing cards. So we've got this, Water, and a lot of more spells to just help you get in the cards you need. And then finally, guys, going on some magic cards, we have got 2 copies of Allure of Darkness. It's limited to 2, that's why we're running 2. We've got 3 6, 9. We have 11 targets for Allure of Darkness. 4 of them you don't particularly care if they're banished because of Fortune's Future. You don't particularly care about it. You just draw, and basically you draw 2 cards and then banish a dark monster. Downside is if you don't have access to a dark monster in your hand, you have to discard your entire hand. So please bear that in mind. But just being able to draw those extra 2 cards, banishing the dark or pass, so then you can trigger Fortune's Future to draw an extra 2. It just really comes in handy. And then 3 copies of Fortune Lady Calling, one of the best magic cards in this deck. I absolutely love this card. So if you have Fortune Lady Past and Calling, or Light and Calling, you have access to do that combo, like I said, where you can normal summon one of them, special summon the other, play Pass's effect on the Light, draw 2 cards off the water, and then you're able to go to Cold Dragon. If you have access to Apprentice Loose Magician or Chaos Sorcerer, you're going to Ultimaya. And it's based off of Fortune Lady Calling. The only downside of Fortune Lady Calling, if you activate it, you can't special summon any other monsters from your extra deck except Synchro monsters. So it does lock you into Synchros, so please bear that in mind. The also downside is you can only special summon monsters from your deck that's not on the field. So if you have a water and you play Calling, you can't summon another water, unfortunately. That's the only downside. And then we have 3 copies of Fortune Vision. It's basically the search card of the deck. So when this card is activated, you get to add any Fortune Lady card from your deck to your hand. That does include spell or traps if you were winning the traps. So this card can search out Fortune Lady Calling if you already have Past and Light or Weather in your hand. And that's kind of the only reason I play it, because after that I kind of just like send it to the graveyard with Magician Souls, because then you get to draw an extra card off it. It does have a couple of effects on the field where if one of your monsters is banished, monsters you control cannot be destroyed by battle. Oh, sorry, cannot be destroyed by card effect until the end of the turn. And if a card your opponent controls is banished, you take no battle damage that turn. So yeah, it kind of does have a few effects. I just reckon, apart from adding a Fortune Lady card from deck to hand, it's kind of useless. That's why I just send it to the graveyard with Magician Souls. We have 2 copies of Fortune's Future. The reason I cut this down to 2 is because I wanted Monster Reborn, because it's just so much more combo extenders. And the last thing you want to do, I reckon, is like, it's good having all these draw cards, but the last thing you want is just open up with a whole hand of draw cards and you can't do naff all, or just having too many draw cards, then you can't do anything. So that's why I decided to cut a copy of Fortune's Future. And what it basically does is you target a banished Fortune Lady monster. Doesn't matter if it's the Synchro or any of your monsters. And then you return. Then you get to draw 2 cards, and the monster that was banished goes to the graveyard. So the best part is, guys, if you've played like, let's say, the Past and Light combo and summon out the water and draw 2 cards, if you have Fortune's Future, you can just send the Light that you banished with Past's effect to the graveyard and draw an extra 2. So you've drew 4 cards off this combo, and it just keeps going off from there. It's absolutely crazy, because then Light's back in the grave, Chaos Sorcerer is then live. Oh, beautiful, absolutely beautiful. And that's basically why you do this, just to draw more cards. We've got 1 copy of Monster Reborn, because say it's a combo extender. So again, if you have the Apprentice Illusion Magician, it's gone to the graveyard for your Magician Souls. You just play the Monster Reborn to resurrect it, and makes life easier if you've already done the thing like for Cold Dragon. Makes life easier to go in Ultimaya, I found. Really comes in handy, and of course, if a card you really wanted like goes, and also you can play Monster Reborn like Water. So you can play Water to resurrect her and draw an extra 2, because obviously she was special summoned. The world's your oyster with Monster Reborn. I just found it just helps out a lot. We're using 1 copy of 1 for 1 because Past, Souls, and Light are all level 1s. So you can just discard a card, special summon the cards you need, go from there, special summon the Magician Souls to draw, and then send cards to the grave to draw 2 cards if you want. Play the Past because you've already got the Light, so you can do that combo. Go for it. We're using 1 copy of Reasoning. It's limited to 1. We're playing this because, as you can see, we're using level 6, 5, and a lot 4s and level 1s. The odds your opponent's going to choose the one you want if they choose level 1 is actually higher than all the rest of it. But I don't think they choose it. I've only had my opponent choose correctly once, and they choose level 4, which was kind of unfortunate because I only have 3 level 4s in the whole deck. So what basically this is, if your opponent has to choose a level from 1 to 12. If they choose right, well, I'll get to that in a minute. You have to keep milling cards from the top of your deck. If it's spell or trap, it goes to the grave. if it's a monster, if it's a level your opponent chose, so if they chose 4 and you top deck Fortune Needed Water, it goes to the graveyard. If it's a level other than the level they chose, so if they chose level 4 and you've got a level 1 monster, you get to special summon it, which comes in handy. So if you have a Fortune Lady monster on the field, I say play the Fortune, or in your hand, play the Fortune Lady, because reasoning, you can get access to that Fortune Needed Water, and if you do, it just makes life easier because you get to draw an extra 2 cards because she was special summoned. Because yeah, it has happened to me before where I played reasoning first, I've got the water and I'm like, great, I've got a Fortune in my hand, I could have drew 2 cards. Happens, it happens. We have 2 copies of Secret Village of the Spellcasters. This card will lock your opponent out of playing spells because you control a spellcaster. A lot of our, like, fortunately, we have quite a lot of spellcasters. Like Chaos Sorcerer is a 2300 spellcaster. Apprentice Magician is a 2000 spellcaster. So these are pretty beefy targets to get into if your opponent cannot play spell cards. So believe me, it really comes in handy. And it's the reason you do it. You're locking out your opponent out of spells, and we have ways to lock your opponent out of monster effects. So between the two, they can use traps, and that is the most uncommon thing in the game. So that's the reason why we're running Secret Village of the Spellcasters. Running 2 copies Spellbook of Knowledge. I decided to cut out the 3rd one and put in a secrets because I found the secrets can just like with secrets, if you have secrets can search out Spellbook of Knowledge because its effect is you can add a spellbook from your deck to your hand. And Spellbook of Knowledge can either send a spellcaster monster you control to the grave, or a spellbook. So you can, if you've already got the 2 knowledges, or you've played one, you drew another, and you've got secrets in your hand, you can just send the secrets to the grave to draw 2 cards instead of sending a spellcaster. And what it is like, say you send a spellcaster or spellbook to the grave, and you draw an extra 2. So Spellbook of Knowledge lets you draw 2, Law of Darkness lets you draw 2. You can draw 2 off Magician's Souls, off of Water, off of Fortune. You have like 5 different. You have like over like 20 cards in this deck that can let you draw cards. It's really stupid, I think. Actually, wait, 3, 6, 8, 10. No, you have like 12 cards in your deck. Sorry, that can let you draw. Really stupid. And yeah, that's the reason why I decided to cut out this one, because it is a hard one per turn. You can't activate more than 1, and yeah, that 1 per turn. That's the reason I decided to cut out 1, just because I found I just kept drawing too many of them, and it's like, right, I can't play this again. Yeah, you could send it to the graveyard with Souls, but if you've already played Souls effect, you can't send it again. I just found just adding that out, just having that secret just made it better for me. And then finally, we've got 3 copies of Scrap Pie and Signal. So if you have Signal along with Ultimaya, you create a very decent lock. So with this is, if you control a monster that has a Synchro monster as its list, like Ultimaya does, you can negate a monster effect, and because it's a Scrap Iron card, it just sets itself after it's sets itself again instead of going to the graveyard. So just being able to negate a monster effect constantly each turn can really come in handy with Signal. And that's the reason we run it. We run 3 because you can send it to the graveyard because you don't care with Souls' effect, or if you want to discard one for Apprentice Magician, be my guest. Going on to the extra deck, guys, we've got 1 copy of Arcanite Magician, I believe it's called. 1 tuner and 1 spellcaster, so you can use Cold Dragon to go into this card. It's not locked to a spellcaster tuner, which is really great. If this card is synchro summoned, it gains 2 spell counters, and for each spell counter it gains 1,000 attack points. So upon being summoned, it'll be on 2,400 attack, which is pretty nice. And it has an effect where you can remove a spell counter to target 1 card your opponent controls on the field and destroy it. So it's great for back row removal if you're kind of scared, like whatever they want, or it's just another way to get over a monster. So you could like banish one with, what was it you could banish one with? You could banish one with Michael, and then you could destroy one with Arcane. Kind of like just like thins out the field really. Then we're running 1 copy of Beazle of the Diabolic Dragons. That's a mouth. That's a weird name. So with Ultimaya, you have access to Dragon Synchro monsters very easily. With Beazle, it's a Dragon Synchro monster, so it meets the requirements for Ultimaya. And because you need a Dark Tuner monster, which the only Dark one we have is Past, you can actually go into Beazle pretty easily. And Beazle cannot be destroyed in battle or by card effects. That's a really great effect. Also, if you take any damage with battles involving this card, card or from the opponent's spell or from the opponent's card effect, this card will gain damage and will gain attack each with the damage you took. So if your opponent activated a magic card that dealt 1000 damage, Bees will gain 1000 attack. And please bear in mind, guys, this effect is not once per turn, so if you keep taking damage, Bees will keep gaining attack points. Also, it doesn't say until the end phase, so Beezle keeps the attack points that it gained. And again, it's kind of a pesky thing to get over. That's why I like Beezle, and it just makes the deck a little bit better. We are running one copy of Black Rose Moonlight, because going into Synchro level 7 is actually kind of easy to go into. So with this card, if it's special summoned, or a level 5 or higher monster special summoned to your opponent's side of the field, so if they try and go for their combo plays, this effect will trigger. You can target one special summoned monster your opponent controls and return it to the hand. So upon being special summoned, its effect's going to trigger to bounce a card back to your opponent's hand. It really comes in handy. So the only reason we're going to Moonlight, and it's just, and of course, because it's a level 7, along with like Arcana and Every, you can use it with Past to go into to go into Crystal Wing, and of course, because it's a level 7, you are able to go into it with Ultimaya, which will then still trigger its special ability. We have 2 copies of Coral Dragon, because with Coral Dragon it's a Synchro Tuner, you need it to go into Ultimaya. So when this card is... So this card has kind of two effects. It's got a field effect where you can discard a card, target one part your opponent controls and destroy it. Doesn't matter if it's set or face up, so that's really nice. So between this, Michael, like say for instance, if you wanted to, you can go into Coral Dragon to pop opponent's card, then use it for synchroing. To go into Arcanite, Arcanite can then pop a card that's 2 cards. Or if you go into Ultimaya, Ultimaya can summon out Michael, and then you can banish another card. You can remove a lot of cards really. And if this card is sent from the field to the graveyard, you get to draw a card. So if you use it to go into a level 7 monster or to go into Ultimaya, you draw an additional card on top of that. So it's really, really great to help you just thin out your deck that little bit more. And then we've got 2 copies of Crystal Wing. You need to have a synchro monster to go into Crystal Wing, or you can cheese it out with Ultimaya. So you're mainly going to play it with Ultimaya, but again, you can still make it with Pass and level 7 Synchro, or with Coral and like if Fortune AD Light is level 2, you can go into it that way. What this card is, if your opponent activates a monster effect, negate it. So you have Signals and Crystal Wing, which can negate like 2 monster effects per turn, and you have Spellbook of Secrets, or Spellbook Secrets, Secret Village of the Spellcasters that can lock your opponent out of spells. So you're locking them out of spells, you're negating the monster effects constantly. Really comes in handy. And that is a quick effect, so Crystal Wing can play it during either player's turn. Also, if it activated on the field, Crystal Wing can destroy that monster, and if it does, it gains attack equal to its defense until the end phase. Also, if this card battled a level 5 or higher monster, it gains that monster's attack. So it's really overpowered Crystal Wing, continually gaining attack points and just negating everything. Then we're using 2 copies of Fortune AD Every, one of the best cards. I love this card because it just gave the deck a little bit. It just gave the Fortunates a little bit of an extra boost. They still need a bit of a boost, but it just gave them that extra boost. So this card again gains 400 attack points for each of its levels. Because it's level 7, upon being summoned, it will have 2800 attack points, which is nothing to scoff at, especially because it's a spellcaster. Locks your opponent out of the extra deck should you have, locks your opponent out of spell, sorry, if you have Secrets of Village Spellcaster, and 2800 attack points with that filled spell is nothing to scoff at. It has 2 effects to activate. So during the standby phase, you'll gain it gains a level like the other Fortune ADs, and then during the standby phase, you can banish 1 face-up monster your opponent controls, which is very powerful because they do forget about this effect. It comes in handy a lot. You can just keep banishing monsters your opponent has. It has to be face up, but you can just keep banishing it and going off from there. And during your opponent's end phase, if this card is in the grave, you can banish a spellcaster monster. It doesn't have to be a Fortune Lady, and then you can special summon this card. So even if your opponent destroyed it, it comes back. And then because it's during the end phase and then during the standby phase, you banish one of your opponent's monsters. So if they're trying to like destroy them and kind of attack you, you can just banish their card. And even if you have Secret Vision Spellcaster activated during their turn and they destroy every, it comes back, it doesn't lock you out of spells. We are running one copy of Michael because it is a dragon synchro monster and it's level 7, which means you can go into it via Ultimaya. You can actually go into it if you have Cold Dragon and Light, so you can make it legit. His effect is you can pay 1,000 life points to target one card on the field and banish it. So again, it's just there for, aside adding minks, it's just there to add extra field removal. And because he doesn't destroy, he banishes it. Kind of gets around some pesky cards effects. We have one copy of Scrap Dragon, level 8 Synchro Dragon, again, so you can special summon it via Ultimaya. And with this card, you can target one card you control and one card your opponent controls and destroy both of them. So So it really comes in handy. You can just pop one of the cards. Like say for instance, if you've got 2 Future Visions, you can just send one of them to the graveyard and just pop your opponent's card. It's just there again for another card removal. And then I've been hyping him up the entire time. We have 2 copies of Ultimaya. So Ultimaya, you can only special summon this card by sending 2 level 5 monsters from your field to the grave. One of them has to be a tuner, one has to be a non-tuner. So that's why you have Cold Dragon and basically Synchro Monster you've got, or you could have Apprentice Solution Magician or Chaos Sorcerer, and you go off on there. With this card effect is, if you set a spell or trap, including if you set the field spell, you could special summon a Dragon Synchro Monster that's level 7 or 8 from your extra deck. So this one card can cheese out Crystal Wing, so you've got a monster negate. If you have signals in your hand, you have 2 monster negates. You could play Michael to banish a card. You can go into Moonlight to bounce a card back to bounce opponent's monster or monster back into the hand. You can go to Scrap Dragon, destroy a card. Do whatever you want, guys. Ultimaya is such a good card. We're ordering the 1 copy of Photon Strike Bouncer, 2 level 6 monsters. Chaos Sorcerer and Apprentice Solution Magician can special summon themselves, so it's easy to go to Photon Strike Bouncer, and you can use it with Dark if she remains on the field long enough. The downside is if you play Fortune Lady Calling, you can't go into Bouncer because Calling, like I say, locks you into synchros. So Strike Bouncer is just great because again, it's kind of like the effect. It's kind of like the Xyz version of Crystal Wing, because during either player's turn, you can negate a monster effect and deal 1,000 points of damage to your opponent. So it's just another monster negate on the field on top of everything else. And then finally, you have 1 copy of Selene, Queen of the Master Magicians. You need 2 monsters, including Spellcaster. You need 3 monsters, and one of them has to be a spellcaster. If this card is link summoned, you can place spell counters on it equal to the number of spells on the field and in the graveyard. So if you have 5 on the field, you can gain 5 counters. And the effect is you can use, which is a quick effect, you can remove 3 counters from this card, special summon a spellcaster from your hand or grave, and that extra special summon can be key. Especially if you already drew a lot of cards, you can go into her, and then obviously you can then special another water. If you've already got another Fortune Lady, draw another 2. If you've already got a monster in the field but you want that extra, if you want that pass that's in your hand, summon it, be my guest. So the reason why you're running Selene, the downside, again, because she's a link monster and not a synchro, if you play Fortune Lady Calling, it does lock you out of Selene. So if you want to play Selene, either don't do it on the same turn you're going to play Calling, or play her before you play Calling. So please bear that in mind. And that's it for the deck, guys. Like I say, check out Stardust YGO, because without him, this deck wouldn't be possible, and he has got a lot of videos on Fortune Lady. So please check him out. I did go a bit longer than I would normally, because this deck is this deck I've never had to think so much in order to play this deck. Like during the replays, I do take my time a little bit more, and I do have to bloody think, because if you make one mistake, this deck is very unforgiving. So please bear that in mind. If you enjoyed this deck, hit that thumbs up, and if you want to consider subscribing, go for it, because either one helps the channel grow. And guys, wherever you are in the world, take care and stay healthy. Goodbye.
It's time to say goodbye. I'm not afraid of you. I need to walk away cause they don't wanna be a liar. If I cannot live my life, I am as good as dead. 途切れないように消えないように自分を確かめて謎めきでないほど傷ついても確かな明日が来るように飛んで勝って走る二度とない今日を終わらないように絶えないように自分に問いかけて明日を失っても自分のせいだろう二度はない今日と生きるのも自由だからそんな後悔ない人生をそんな後悔ない人生を途切れないように消えないように絡みつく時間振り切って限界までぶっ飛ばしてギリギリの思いつないだら行くのさマイウェイ赤くたぎる情熱抱いてモノクロの景色を抜けたらノンストップで一気に追い越してゆけ誰よりも早くたどり着きたい守るべき人がいるからCrazy keep on driving もっと激しく走れ振り返ることなんてできない One way road Keep on burning so 熱く燃やして嵐のように全てを蹴散らせフルスロートで行くぜクリアマイ孤独と不安を引きずった無力な日々ぶっ壊